I believe this is how it works. This is contact me, it's there. So let's open up a, let's see. This is lovely, when we're doing live. Okay, we just get some information down here. I do apologize. We're trying to say very quickly where is the presentation. For those who did tune in earlier, I do apologize. We had a little bit of a technical glitch. So let me just get access to my, where is the thing that I saved? This is a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I believe we are live. Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to go straight into that. So good afternoon, wherever you guys are joining me on this beautiful Thursday. And today we're going to be talking about, among other things, if we haven't already discussed this, we're going to go into this again. We're going to talk about telecommunications engineering, skills assessment, and its respective permanent residency pathways. So it's a bit of a big area to get into in terms of maybe looking into some of the other occupations that perhaps is related to that very, generic area in terms of telecommunications engineering. We will also cover perhaps some of the requirements in some of the states, just very cosmetically, not full, in-depth analysis of specific requirements, but we'll cover that. But if you have a question and about a particular state, and hopefully you can direct that to Western Australia, which is where I'm based, then I could, perhaps tell you, from my perspective, what and where and how this thing can go. And if you finally settled into your respective, chairs and wherever you are, a very good afternoon. And once again, my name is Dharmindher Singh. I'm one of the migration agents based here in the Aussizz Group in Canningville branch. So without further ado, let's get into the second slide. So you can't really see my slide, but obviously I'm just going to talk to you in general about this. So the occupations in question that we are going to be talking about is that actually, I love these live sessions. I'm just going to ask my tech team, wherever they are, Janvi, are they able to see these slides at all? Yes, no? Maybe you move the mouse to tell me yes, no? No, you still have access to my AnyDesk. Okay, this is fun. We are talking about telecommunications. So they are unable to see this screen, but that's okay. Then, if that is the case, then that's going to be crazy. How are they going to get access to this? I think we did do a dry run for this. It's always amazing to be in the middle of this. Janvi, are they able to see my screen at all by any chance? So that at least makes it easier? No? The screen about the telecommunications part? If somebody, then it's easier for me to run through that. If not, then no? Okay. So I'll just carry on per normal and then we'll field the questions as we go along. Okay, cool. No problems. Okay, we got this. So the occupations in concern we are talking about, let me just take my mouse in charge again, is an R. Just remember this, the occupations in concern here are the telecommunications engineer. And for those of you who are very particular about the ANSPO code, you can write this thing down as 263311. And then 263312 is a telecommunications network engineer. So that's to do with the telecommunication engineering professionals. And then you have telecommunications technical specialists. And then there's about 4 of them down here. So if you're one of them, take note, you can ask me a question after that. So the one we're talking about is the radio communications technician, telecommunications field engineer, telecommunications network planner, telecommunications technical officer, or otherwise known as technologist. So if you're one of them, and if you have already perhaps studied something in that field, or close to or have already attained your skills assessment, and then you're wondering, based on that, where can I apply? Most importantly, your respective expression of interest. Just remember, all these occupations that I just mentioned, not every state have them on their list. So this is where the challenge begins, because you studied, you've persevered, you've finally got the skills assessment, and then now you are like, your visa is running out and you're thinking, where can I apply? So this is what we want to talk to you about, because some states, respectively for their corresponding 491 and 190 visas, have them on their list. Some of them might not. Case in point, those people who studied and then got an assessment as telecommunications network planner, for example, you might not be on the WA list for that matter. Then you might want to think, oops, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I, best, position yourself so that you can get an invitation? So we'll cover that at the same time. Now, the telecommunications engineer, that's quite specific though. So you fall under the medium to long-term skills list. Obviously, your assessing body, I'm sure for both of them, whether you're a network engineer or just a telecommunications engineer, your assessing body is Engineers Australia. I don't want to bore you to death by telling you what telecommunications, let's call it telecom, okay, telecom engineer does, because you've researched enough, you understand through the NSCO code, based on the duties and responsibilities, that's what you kind of need to do in order to get a skills assessment, all right? So next one here. So the other ones I've already read out to you, and I don't want to repeat that. So let me just go into the skills assessment part of it, okay? So if you have studied something in that field, and most of the occupations that I've just mentioned, they fall under, at the moment, classified as a medium to long-term skills list. So they are all, majority of them are skill level 1, some of them are probably 2. And the way to go about it is your assessing body is Engineers Australia, and then we'll go into just what are the things that the assessing body looks at in terms of coming to the skills assessment component of it. So generally speaking, occupational categories, like I said, if you fall under a professional engineer, that is deemed as level 1. For level 1, you need to make sure that you have at least 4 years of a professional bachelor's degree in engineering. And more than anything else, if you're a technologist, still level 1, then you have 3 to 4 years of bachelor's. And then, of course, when you go into the other occupations, that may be a diploma or something who've done an advanced diploma in engineering or an associate degree, then you become a level 2, which is an engineering associate, which some of you perhaps have done. Then, not forgetting, of course, the very important English component. You need to have demonstrated that you have the requisite IELTS, PTE, primarily, which is what's being used, which is deemed as competent English within the last 2 years. Or if you've studied in Australia in an engineering, qualifications, that's good enough. Or in most cases, some of you have done a master's degree. That's also fantastic. If you've done PhD, fantastic. And then, of course, then you are pretty much on your pathway to getting the assessment done. So this is where it gets pretty interesting whenever it comes to pathway, because the questions that we normally get is that, am I accredited or am I not? I've studied down here. How do I go about it? Do I have to do a CDR? Don't have to do a CDR? And all of these questions can get confusing to a lot of people. Now, if you happen to find yourself in that sort of situation, yes, you have a lot of information online these days that you can access to, but if for whatever reason, if you're still not sure and you just want to just make that extra attempt to identify exactly what pathway, whether you are on an accredited pathway or you are not accredited, I think you have my email on the screen. Perhaps you can still see in fine print. That's my email at dharmindher.singh@aussizzgroup.com. So you can kind of have a look at that screen right now. You can actually take note of that email. You can contact me directly. No problems. And for that matter, not just the fact that you want to have the question on assessment. If you have any question, literally, I'm feeling a little bit generous. You can actually contact me, and we can perhaps, maybe sometimes if you didn't have the opportunity to, pose a very long question for everybody else, you wanted to direct a specific question to me, feel free to do so. I'm sure I would have to steal away and find a quiet moment to maybe address those questions for you. Now, as I said to you, if you are confused about whether you're in Washington Accord, you're Dublin Accord, you're on whatever accord that you are still not sure whether you are, having to do a CDR pathway or whether you have to do career episodes and summaries and all of those very wonderful things, which really determines whether you get an assessment. And if you do get an assessment, you want to get it done in the correct stream. Is really what this is all about. Okay, so if you're still confused, feel free to email me, and then I can tell you, how to go about that. Now, I think this is probably a good thing to sort of get straight into, which is how then do you figure out, just trying to move the screen just in case I'm getting some questions coming through, which I suspect I am. Let me just move this there. Okay. Okay, Nitesh has already posted a question, so I'll come back to the question shortly, okay? Let's have a look at the question, Nitesh. Thank you for posing the question. Oh, okay, maybe it says will be answered to the end. In fact, that's even better. So let me just go through these slides. Thank you. And then I'll definitely start taking the questions from the top again, and whatever they are, we can cover that. Thanks, Janvi, for mentioning that. So as I was saying, what a lot of you sometimes might want to know would be, how then do you, in today's very competitive environment, be in a position to actually get the all-important, invitation in the general skill migration pathway? So, as I said to you, the general skill migration pathway involves you meeting. Somebody's moving my screen. I just can't see this. Yeah. Okay. So it involves us maybe applying under the 189. 189 is the skill independent visa. That means there's no state, no family sponsoring you. You're on your own accord. You're going to have some pretty good points. I suspect nothing less than 90, 95 is the going rate at the moment. But they've been very stingy, the departments, with their invitations for 189 of late. Now, the 190 and the 491 are state-sponsored, 190 being the permanent visa, and 190 is a permanent visa, and 491 is the temporary visa, which is effectively 5 years, and you get an invitation for 3. Another 3, you get a PR later on by applying for a 191, but that's later. If your raw points is 80, you get 5 from the state, it makes you 85. That's competitive, because in WA, the last invitation rounds, we were looking at 80, 85 points in which people got an invitation. Now, if it's a 491, which is equally competitive, which, by the way, can I just very quickly suggest or mention, it's not a suggestion, it's actually a mention, that in WA you can be invited in 2 streams, right? You can be invited under the general stream or the graduate stream. The graduate stream is essentially there for someone who has studied in, somebody who has studied in Western Australia, 92 weeks studied in any discipline, but you've completed 2 years of study, you are deemed as a graduate from Western Australia. You could have done an MBA and you would have got a skills assessment from an overseas qualifications, doesn't matter, or wherever, but because you studied here and you have the all-important skills assessment, is what we're talking about, then you are deemed under the graduate stream. And depending on your occupation, this is what I was telling you guys about earlier. So some of the occupations, just because you studied down here and you got a successful skills assessment, need not necessarily mean you are on the state's sort of a list, a skills list, I should say, a skills occupation list as well. And that poses a problem, because you're like, well, I've studied, I've got a skills assessment, and I don't know what to do with it. So people, some of my clients are in that situation. So whilst maybe on their TR, 485, they managed to do something else, maybe study or worked, and then managed to get another skills assessment, perhaps in the same field, not necessarily in the same field, but maybe in another occupation, just to hedge your bets to see, can you better stand a chance for an invitation eventually. So keep a constant eye out on the state nomination list that keeps changing, but effectively it changes every year. So they have obviously announced you can go to the state nomination site and you can see what the occupations are for the graduate list. Now, for those who did not graduate but are residing in Western Australia, then you fall under what is deemed as the general list. The general list is really very, very good. Also, because some of occupations you are not able to apply, and then if you are, by some stroke of luck, if you are invited under the general stream, then you're going to start thinking that are you invited under the Schedule 1 or Schedule 2? Without confusing you, Schedule 2 might mean that you've studied elsewhere, but you're residing here, and you will be eligible to accept the invitation within the 28 days grace period that they actually invite you. And if it's a 190 application, then you might be required to do provide a job offer letter and all that kind of stuff. And if it's a 491, there's no job offer letter. But if you are invited under Schedule 1, that requirement might be that you must have already have worked 1 year, be it overseas or here, in order to be eligible. But I think most of these occupations we're talking about don't think so it falls under that. So that's a bit of a okay thing. Wow. Now, I think we spoke about points already, which is good because this is what I've already spoken about in my earlier thing. I'm just looking at my slide for those of you who can't see. Look, the whole thing rests on points, though. I mean, there was a point, there was a time where you could safely say you got the bare minimum of 70 points. I'm talking about 2.5 years ago. You put an EOI, no problems. You get an invite because then we had a healthy quota at the same time. And then you got the invitation and you met the respective things and off you go. As you know, last year, or the last financial year, not this one we have 5,000. In the last financial year, we had 2,350, which is very little. And a year before then, we had 8,000. So these are the variables that none of us control. These are the things that can frustrate a lot of people. These are the things that makes people who are not a graduate from here think, ooh, well, we haven't had an invitation as of until last Friday. Is it wise? Shall I move to WA? What are my chances? I'm on 75 points. What are my chances? My visa is ending in December. What do I do? I'm not eligible for a COVID visa, which is ended, or I'm not eligible for a 485 extension. And now, as you know, as of beginning of July, you are not even eligible to go and apply for another student visa. So tough decision, tough times, it makes for tough men, or tough people, I should say, ladies as well. So start planning on whether you have worked. Can we use that as an example? So those are the things that we want to actually kind of see. And if you are in a position to better improve your points, you want to, you got 7 each now, you are training towards getting 8 each. And all of this is of no use because I think they've announced that sometime this year they're going to change these points allocation at the same time, which is another thing that we can talk about another time. But today we want to just zero in on what the immediate requirements are. Telecommunications is still hot. It's a very hot sort of an area in terms of occupations that are still in demand. And we want to look towards trying to see whether you can actually get a skills assessment and then improve your chances for an invite. Now, of course, it's all over. I wish you could see my screen, but you can't because we prepared some interesting graphics, and unfortunately, you got to bear with looking at me, which graphically is equally probably not that bad as well. So dare I say. Now, let's talk about Victoria. So for those of you who have lodged or are from Victoria, or if you're listening in and you graduated from there, Victoria has a little bit of another step, not just applying through a 491 or 190 in a normal EOI system that we have in WA. You also have to lodge what is called a registration of interest, commonly called an ROI. And then you go into the pre-invite, and then from the pre-invite, you get, the nomination if you are invited, and then they check everything else, and then it goes, yep, you're good to go, and then you apply for the visa. So that's just another extra step that they're put into that. And the current occupations available in Victoria are, reading off the screen, telecommunications engineer and telecommunications network engineer. Okay, so they are available for onshore, of course, and the new updates are coming shortly. So keep an eye out because we've just updated this in June. So this should be up and running. And in case you are in that area or that particular concern, you can raise that up with me via my email. Then Victoria still has very specific requirements. For 190 to be invited, you can be living anywhere in Victoria, right? But for 491, obviously it's got to be regional Victoria. Living part and the working part, you've got to be working at least in your nominated occupation, preferably, and skills assessment obviously is needed. Looking at the cutoff points in July 2022, this is as far we want to go. Anyone who had 85 to 100 points, very competitive in Victoria. So the cutoff for 190 was 85 to 100 points. 491, you could be 90 to 95 points, good to go. So in other words, your raw points, adding the 15 to make it 90 to 95, okay? New South Wales, just jumping straight onto that because I want to try to get through this and I'm going to try to take some Q&A because I can already see some people who have posted some questions. I'm very, very keen on Gurveen Singh. Gurveen is an interesting name. So we have New South Wales, again, open only for 190 occupations. And the 190 occupations at the moment in New South Wales are telecommunications engineer and telecommunications network engineer. 491, I'm told it's not open yet, but I'm happy to explore that in all those other areas, the Riverina and Northern Rivers and all the rest of it. New South Wales is quite interesting. They have Pathway 1, Pathway 2 for regional 491. So a lot to get into, but I don't want to confuse anyone down here. Like I said, this is a very generic presentation today. We want to cover some kind of basics, but at the same time, if you are quite specific and if you are in that area and then your visa is running out and you want to press me now for this particular time, you can post that questions and I'll look into that question and I'll come back to you. And I think I can already see Taliba asking something about 491. I can just briefly see from the site and I'll come back to that question, so which is good. Just looking at you. Okay, so New South Wales 190. Okay, so if you are residing offshore, you must be currently residing outside. Okay, so yeah, this thing about 6 months period. So you just can't say, oh, just because you see something in a particular state, you just jump in there and it says, all right, call me in. So every state has this pre-qualifying time. Adelaide might have, South Australia might have 6 months. New South Wales also has this 6 months, this funda. So you've got to be very, very careful before you pick your bags and drive or fly or whatever that you're going to do. South Australia, I was just talking to you a little bit. I'm looking at my screen right now. South Australia says offshore is also available if for whatever reason you are staying down here, you ran out of your visa, you don't know what to do, you didn't get an invite, and you are on high points, and you are overseas. South Australia accepts 190 and 491. Sorry, they only accept 491 only for offshore candidates, okay? And occupations are all telecommunications occupations available. So that's not bad. Take note. South Australia accepts offshore 491 visas and for all telecommunication occupations, which is really, very good. But what we got to factor in is their quota, right? So the pathways they have, like I said to you at the moment, is if you're a grad from there, you're either working in South Australia or you're highly skilled and talented. And what I've just finished covering, that if you are an offshore candidate. Queensland, we're back to Queensland, the sunny Queensland supposedly. Now, Queensland 190 and 491, I'm just looking at this. It's kind of interesting because we don't have a high quota, but in Queensland, if you're from Brisbane, then you don't fall under the 491 because it's not deemed as regional, but Queensland is. And for reasons, all telco occupations are available at the moment for both 190 and 491. But there are graduate pathways I'm talking about for all occupations. There are graduate pathways. You must have studied in a Queensland university. 100% of the course must be completed. They also are very particular about your GPA. You've got to be 6 and higher. proficient English, of course, naturally that's the given, and you must have worked a minimum of 20 hours for the last 12 months. Sorry, the job offer, so when you are invited, so they have that. We used to have that in Western Australia where you were invited about 2.5, 3 years ago. You needed to have a job offer for 1 year. Just because I read that, I want to share that with you. So if in Western Australia, in the general stream, if you are invited for 190, you need a job offer letter within 6 months. No, valid for 6 months, but when you get invited, you have 28 days to accept the invitations by producing a job offer letter that's valid for 6 months. Yeah, we have a mouthful there. Now, Queensland, I think I've covered. I'm going to jump into that. WA, happy to cover WA. I think, let me just look at my screen here. Yep, let me jump back to WA. Don't even have to read the screen because I kind of know this offhand, but I'll still read it just in case, I do miss out on anything. So at the moment, in Western Australia, both onshore, offshore, they have occupations in Schedule 2, 190, 491. They only have telecommunications engineer, telecommunications network engineer. Now, in the graduate occupation list, they only have telco engineer and telecommunications network engineer. Network planner is not there, which is where a lot of people are stuck for some reason or other. So they've started to find alternative pathways. I'm not about to tell you what they are. If you are interested and you have some time left, you're able to contact me and I can tell you offline, how you can go about that. Okay. So how they invite people, first priority is obviously given to people who are residing in Western Australia. Second priority is candidates from the rest of Australia. And third priority is people who are obviously not in Australia. Now, as I said to you, 2 streams in WA, general and graduate. Graduate is because you must have studied 2 years full-time in Australia, especially in WA, and then general is if you've studied anywhere, and especially in Australia, then you're good. Proficient English, I've already mentioned to you the job offer letter contract. I think, yeah, because that's good. Apparently, yeah, they want to eventually check your financial capacity or later and all that kind of stuff, but that's not a huge prerequisite in terms of accepting the invitation, just in case you're wondering. I've got Northern Territory on my screen, but I'm not going to cover it because I don't think so that many, but I will cover it if somebody poses a question on Northern Territory, and I'm happy to sort of let you know what Northern Territory is all about. But basically, it's about the same thing. It's incentivizing, firstly, the graduates of that particular state, and secondly, if you're not, and you happen to, by some sheer coincidence, happen to work and you are living there, then you are meeting that part of, already meeting and living, working maybe for 6 consecutive months, so that you can demonstrate that, you are in that area. And if in the case of employment, then you must demonstrate that, you have a further 12 months in that occupation. So bit of things involved in that. You can't finish this thing. You can't talk about this thing without mentioning Tasmania. So Tasmania, I did mention to you that we're going to cover some of the states, but I'm just running through them very, very quickly, as I should, because I'm looking at Tasmania. Nothing out of the ordinary at the moment. Offshore applicants currently closed, expected to be open in July, which July has already passed. So we're happy to look into that where Tasmania is concerned, because we are in the new financial year. I suspect it's up and running. I'm happy to, comment if somebody wanted to check on that. Similar thing, skill employment, what they really want to do is that to demonstrate that you are, not just having an assessment, but you're also working in a related field of, assessment in which you got. I'm looking at slide number 22, going quite well. Almost 2 more slides, and then I'm going to go straight to the question, which is really what I want to do. Now, there's no worries about the diploma, which is all AQF level. You've studied, you've met the requirements, 92 weeks, you're full-time, so you are deemed as a graduate. Same thing for 491 and 190, you already know that. Established resident in 491 means there are pathways available for you if you've been a resident for 2 years. Okay. Now, if any one of you, for whatever reason, if you happen to be lucky enough that you have actually worked and you have 3 years of experience, then you can entertain the idea of an employer-sponsored visa, which is a direct entry DE 186, where you need a skills assessment and you need to demonstrate 3 years of experience that is necessary before you can entertain the employer-sponsored visas for those occupations in the 186 category. And for those who don't have that 3 years, who perhaps have an employer and you're on very high points and you're waiting not to be invited, waiting and you haven't been invited, not to be invited, like you haven't been invited. And come this November, 482 is also going to be revamped. I think you guys know that already. What you need to do if you were to apply today for a 482 employer-sponsored visa is you need to demonstrate 2 years. For those of you who don't have, and you have some time left on your visa, you can entertain other pathways. You can entertain the training visa. You must have graduated in the last 2 years, or you must have worked in the relevant field for 2 years in order to jump on a training visa so that you can supposedly train and then eventually also jump onto the 482 visa, which is the employer-sponsored visa. 494 is there, but 494 needs you to have a skills assessment in 3 years, and then you got to work for the employer for further 3 years before you get a PR. So it's a bit of a situation unless you are trying to apply on your own. You've got a skills assessment, you've got the points. Some of the states have a quota, and you do your prayers religiously every night at 2:37 in the morning, which nobody wakes up in this winter. Then you might be invited. But otherwise, then you've got to find an employer, and then good luck in that. We can talk about employer-sponsored visas in that manner. There's no point showing you my last screen because my last screen says it's the end. It's finished. I've gone to the Q&A. Maybe I can move this thing aside and actually look at how enchanting this crowd is that has actually joined me. Wow, I got Kranti Kumar, I got all kind of people joining me here. Darshan, maybe, Chandra, Rashmit, Carlos. Ooh, cool. I got a fair few people who joined. No way, that's a lot of people. Okay, let's look at the questions. What other questions have we got? Really? Okay, let's start with the first one. So, Q&A, right? Even before I start, I mean, if he says to me that I have an active audience, maybe, let's see, let's look at the first question. What is the scope for PR after It's bound to happen when I read the first question. We just finished talking entirely about telecommunications, engineering, and everything else. And the first question I get from Savina is, what is the scope for PR after Diploma of Nursing? How is that? You're very keen for a nurse to join in this presentation, but I think if you've done a Diploma of Nursing, then you're as good as anything else, because nursing is in demand. Just to put you at ease, I don't see a problem. I don't think they've announced anything otherwise. So you're good, Savina. So don't worry about it. In case you're really, really worried, then go and take up something to do with telecommunications engineering, perhaps. Atir Mansoor, he says, could you please advise me that is there any chance for internal auditor? Okay. Nobody's an engineer down here, right? Everybody is of a different occupation. I'm in the mood. I'll take the second question. The first was a nursing. Second one was an internal auditor. Yeah, why not? And with an age of 40, you are 85 points. Not bad. You could perhaps try and see and wait. You have been a good person in your previous life, and if karma is good, you might get an invite for 491. But the quick homework to do is to see where, firstly, you studied, whether are you in the graduate or the general stream, and just have a benchmark of when and where the last invitation round was, so as to better position yourself. Because in some of the states, like especially in Western Australia, you need to be residing in Australia. It doesn't in Western Australia, regardless of whether you're a graduate or a general stream, you need to then sort of be in a position to be an invite, to get an invite. So what have we got? Oh, Nitesh, I do apologize. You were right on top. So I'm going to take from the top, not just from where I saw Sabina. So let me just get straight back. Thanks for reminding me, Nitesh, is regarding to telecom. So let's come back to telecom. So let me just go back to your question. And thank you for posting the first question. Nitesh says, sir, thank you for calling me sir, but you don't have to. You can just say, hey, yo, politely, of course. So I'm currently studying and about to finish this advanced diploma of IT network engineering on fast track. Okay, this means I have to do a CDR now as of new announcement, correct? So you saw that. I think that was announced today, if I'm not wrong, or yesterday. So to answer your question, Nitesh, yes, you would have to. So in case you're still confused for some reason, because how does it apply to you, this new announcement? Happy to take it offline. You got my email. I think you can still see it somewhere there, and you can email me. Let me move my screen a little bit here. Okay, the host says drop any questions will be answered towards the end. Nitesh is still Nitesh. Also, with that, what are the chances of this financial year for telecom sector for invitation? I'm currently in Queensland, and as of now, have 80 points. These are good questions. This is exactly why we're doing this particular session, right? Even if I had to do a one-on-one 35 minutes just to answer Nitesh, I don't mind, because we want to cover this topic, and that's to be fair to people who actually tuned in for this purpose. Although we've answered the other two questions for the nurse and the auditor. So coming back to this, you're in Queensland, you have 80 points. You're asking what the chances. Early days, right? Early days, Nitesh. You've just started. Let's just see how the mood is, and if the quota is good. From offhand, I can't remember what Queensland's quota is. I don't think so it'll be that bad. And if you are from there, and if you, hang on, I am currently in Queensland, and as of now, I have 80 points. It's a hard one to take. Whenever everybody says, oh, what are the chances? Your chances are as good as how long you have left on your visa. I think that's a better answer to give, because, come on, they are tightening the screws. They really want to select the cream de la cream. Look at WS invitation on Friday. 80 to 85 points. People were invited with 100 points on 491 who had just put in their EOI about 2 weeks prior to the invitation, and they got an invite, and I got this fellow who was jumping for joy. So if you are in that situation, then that's what you need to do. And to answer your question, can you apply for other states? Yeah, why not? If you meet the eligibility requirements, then you should. Gurvin is a cool name. I know someone called Gurvin, and that's why I'm highlighting Gurvin. Gurvin saying, will there be any IT invites 190 this year? Where are we talking about? I mean, why not? IT is very much not under the radar. IT is very much in the scheme of things, in front of us in terms of what they want to invite. Yeah, I to answer your questions, 100%, they will invite this year. But you just need to know which states that you are to be in a better position to get an invite. I think that's what we want to do. Taliva, if I'm pronouncing your name right, I have 80 plus 5 points for New South Wales and 95 for 491 with zero experience. Wow, what is that? It's a different occupation. And a job in retail pharmacies, and what are my chances? Onshore with superior English. If you're a retail pharmacist, why don't you come to Western Australia? You stand a very good chance, probably for getting an invite as a retail pharmacist. A pharmacy technician can get an invite for 80, 85 points. Who knows what your chances are? Let's see how you go. Sabina, I think I've answered your question. Atir Mansoor, internal auditor, I've answered. And you go on by saying, after 11 years of studies gap, is it right to approach to take admission in an Australian university to improve the points in 40H? I don't understand what you mean. So if you have a gap, if you're already here and you got an assessment, you're on your 485, you can't study anymore if that's your situation. But if that is not the cutoff is 44, as you know, and then if you're already here and your visa is about to expire, if you fall under this Dharma scheme and you want to talk about Dharma, we can talk about that another time, but it has to be another session. Then that's something else that you can explore if that is the case. Nitesh, you've reminded me is regarding telecom. Okay. I got Dharmindher Sohi. He's got a Dharmindher, same name as me. How is that possible? But he's got a different spelling. He's got Dharminder. He's missing another name. Yeah, it's good to see Dharmindher in the screens, on the screen at the same time. Hi, sir. How are you? How long does it take to get a 190 invitation grant? Occupation is in IT. Thank God this Dharmindher is making sense. It's already 19 months and I've applied for. Where are you though? Which state are you in, so that we can understand where have you applied and what are your chances, Dharmindher, and then we can perhaps better advise you. Or better still, email me. If I see the name Dharmindher, the first thing I'll reply is to that email. Why? Because you have got the same name as me. Why not? Hey, but if you tell me what state you are in 19 months is a heck of a long time, and you haven't been invited for, must be doing something wrong on I don't even know how many points you have. So let's just start doing that. Let's come back to Nitesh. So I've started working in the field too, just 3 months, and my TR visa is expiring next year, April, and I'm thinking to go for training visa. Oh, okay, that's a good one. So remember, training visa is popular, but if you do the wrong thing, if you follow the wrong step, they are refusing training visas as well. You've worked 1 year, or you're a recent graduate, and you don't have experience as well, you have an employer who wants to take you on, you need to design a very good training plan. And I do training visas too, by the way, but I don't do the training plan. I farm out that work. I get a proper training plan. I put together with an employer. Employer gets to be an approved sponsor. Then we do the nomination with the training plan. And if your visa permits, you launch the visa at the same time. So all of that needs to be approved. And it's not a bad idea to go on that visa if every other visa is running out, so that you can better position your chances of being invited in the respective state, hopefully. Okay, so that's why training visas are popular. Also, if you don't mind, Nitesh is asking me, can you explain a bit of CDR and what is it actually? Do we have work experience? All right, cool, no problems. So how this thing works is this. Let's say you're from an overseas university. Let's just take, I don't want to name any university because I don't want to promote any university. Let's say if you're from a reputable university and it's an accredited pathway, then that's fine. Then you don't have to do all of this funny CDR business and all that kind of stuff, right? Then you can either use what you study based on the assignments that you've done, be it a group or individual, and you need to have that, and you draft out 3 career episodes with a summary, you're good. So this accredited, non-accredited is really what Engineers Australia is kind of making it. And I agree with them as well, because they want to see whether from the EA website, you will know based on the information you put from the university that, at what year, when was your course deemed accredited. So if it is not, then you would have to do a CDR. CDR is a competency demonstration report, which you will have to do. Some external providers do CDRs. I don't want to comment on that. It's not my business to comment. But if you manage to get a successful CDR, and you submit that, and you can base it on work or your assignments, or for that matter, to demonstrate that you know what your area of expertise is or what you studied and how that will impact you, then you have what is called a successful skills assessment. And with that, if your time is running out, you can, I think, pay a little bit more extra. Maybe you can get the result in less than 6 weeks, have a successful skills assessment, and then off you go. Whilst we're talking on the CDR and all of those things. Be careful. I had a few clients applied, hey, all good. For some reason, got the CDR done, and CDR did not pass through the plagiarism check. got not just a warning, but got a refusal and then got a ban for 1 year. Not fun. That's not all. This particular client then got referred to the department for reasons which the assessing body can do, and in this instance did, to say that they got reason to believe that this client has provided fraud documents and whatnot. No goes on. So be very careful when you come to those kind of matters. If you're not sure, if you are genuinely only studied that field and you can only study that, or for that matter, if you cannot get an assessment in a particular discipline of yours, then you would end up getting an assessment in engineering technologies. I know what you're thinking. A lot of you are thinking, engineering technologies, what am I going to do? What are the chances of being invited to the technologies? It is competitive. It's as good as people saying that, oh, I've done accounting. Goodness me, did I mention that in this particular presentation? Then you got to see how are the chances of technologies, how and when are you going to be invited? Are you on the general? Are you on the graduate list? It's not fun when you come to that. Speaking of fun, I like this now because I'm almost at the end of the questions. And I want to do a bit of a recap for those who are still looking, listening, maybe joining me later. You'll still see this presentation. And you have my email address down there. You can contact me where it says contact me. I know I say this all the time, but unless you actually tell me in detail, hey, this is my story. I've done this. I've done an assessment. I've been sitting here for 19 months. My visa is running out in 6. God forbid I'm not eligible for the 485 extension, the regional extension these days, or if you are allowed for any other, which I think they have removed, then your clock is ticking. Then you need to start thinking of those training visas. Some of you have posted that. Then some of you are going to ask things like, partner application. And you're going to go and find a partner, right? You're just not going to get a partner just like that. Come to me, I'm not a marriage celebrant, but I can tell you how to go about it. But at the same time, don't go and do anything to spoil your case. Don't go and do some crazy protection visas and all of that, which some people end up doing. I don't even know why. Yeah, be desperate, but don't be silly. Don't be silly to ruin your whole pathway that you have studied and whatnot. If nothing else happens, you studied, you didn't get an invite, your visa is running out. Okay, go back, right? I mean, easier said than done. I understand that. Go and improve your points. Check where, how, what, offshore, where, what are the requirements. Improve, maybe you work, you get some experience. All of that is not going to go to waste. So don't be foolish about it, is what I want to say politely. I think on that note, looking that Nitesh, totally appreciate that you've actually, like I said, I've been in a room where not necessarily I have 150 people, I could have 3 people, and I'm happy to talk about that at the same time. And to answer your question, do we need to book an appointment to contact you? Yeah, you can email me first because you have my email address. I'm sure it's there. Otherwise, you do have my email address. Right? Nitesh, if you answer yes, that means I know you have it because you seem to be the only ones to be engaging with me at this stage. If not, I'm happy to put that. And when you email me, you say, look, I'd like to book an appointment, whether it's you want to come face to face down here or you want to have a phone consult, no problems. I'm happy to accommodate that and perhaps take it from there. So if there is nothing happening, I think that's my cue. It's 4 o'clock. Time flies when they say you're talking, and evidently I love to talk. And Janvi knows that very well, or Ramya, whoever is managing this. I think we are good to go. Or you're going to post my address there. Cool. Dharmindher Singh. It's all there. I think I've pretty much covered most of the stuff that I wanted to cover. And then just like that, we wanted to end it. Just before you hold it, somebody has posted a question. How does Victoria know I'm in a priority sector? The ROI asks.